No, the church is not funding terrorist organizations. The Middle East Forum posted an article this week that would suggest that the church has donated $140 million to charities that have ties to Hamas and Islamist terror organizations. But these headlines are completely missing the picture, if not simply just not true. So these two headlines that have hit the news this week, we had one from Middle East Forum and Israel 365. They're so detached from reality that I have to wonder if they are being deliberately deceptive, because when you read these articles more closely, and when you dig into the tax documents themselves, which I have done a lot of today, you discover that this really just doesn't hold much water. It's mostly bunk. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some really interesting things happening with the church's charitable giving and what's going on in the Middle East. And there even is quite the scandal. Like, when I was peeling back the layers of this story and digging through all the tax documents and looking up all of the board of directors of all these organizations, and I discovered what had happened, my jaw just dropped. But it doesn't have to do with Hamas or terrorist organizations. It's something else altogether. So let's go look at this article and kind of break down what's going on so we understand what is and what is not happening when it comes to Latter-day Saint charitable giving and Islamist terrorist organizations, because it is all over the map. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. This is the article that was published this week. Mormon charities among top contributors to terror-aligned Islamist charities. So on this one, we've got Global Relief, Lifting Hands, and the LDS Church itself have handed millions to charitable fronts for dangerous Islamist movements. That's a pretty inflammatory headline. Okay, and you even have this picture here of the CEO of Islamic Relief USA, which is going to be one of the implicated charities, and Gene Bingham of the LDS Church. There's clearly collaboration going on here. It can't possibly be just like an event they were at together. So the basic claim here is that a study of nonprofit donors to a dozen leading Islamist charities aligned with foreign Islamist movements revealed that Mormon 501c3 charities, including the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints itself, are among Islamist extremists' leading benefactors. Okay, so on this one, this is, again, it's just like really misleading. It sounds like, wow, the church itself is giving all of this money to Islamist extremist charities. And this is not a political channel, so I don't really care like what side of this you are on, what you think of Hamas or Palestine or Israel. We're all brothers and sisters here. But if you are someone who is very concerned about Islamist ideology, this could be a really concerning red flag. But it's important to know all the details and what's actually going on here. So looking into this, the two main nonprofits that they are implicating in this article are Globus Relief and Lifting Hands, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So when I first read this article, my assumption was, oh, Globus Relief and Lifting Hands, those must be like church entities or something, right? So this is Lifting Hands International. This is, we provide aid to refugees, both at home and abroad, simply humanitarian. This is their founder, Haley Smith. She was like, I don't know if she's born and raised in Utah, but she, I think lives in Utah now, and she just, during one mental health episode, she fell in love with Arabic, learning Arabic, loved the Arabic people or Arab people, and so decided that she just felt this call to start a nonprofit to help humanitarian aid for the people in these countries. Then you've got Globus Relief. This is another humanitarian nonprofit that's all about providing medical supplies. So this is providing like medical equipment like stethoscopes, thermometers, ultrasound equipment, things like that, wheelchairs, you name it. So those are like their main purposes, is to provide these medical supplies and have these medical programs for assisting people who are in need of humanitarian help. Pretty straightforward. But again, when I first read this article that's like, oh, Globus Relief, Lifting Hands, and Church of Jesus Christ, I assumed that meant that like these two nonprofits were part of the church or were church entities. And as far as I can tell, they're 100% in no way part of the church. That is the biggest thing to take away, that they are conflating multiple things to make it seem like these two nonprofits' activities are reflecting upon the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints charitable giving? 100% does not. So how does this fit in? I had to do a lot of digging on this because it's not entirely clear how the church is structured. So many members of the church understand that there's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That is like where all the departments. You've got like the priesthood and family department, the scripture department. You've got like the bishop's storehouse, and you've got all of this stuff within the church. But then many Latter-day Saints also know that there are church entities that aren't part of the formal church. Like things inside of the formal church are going to be things that fulfill the fourfold mission of the church of caring for the poor and needy and living the gospel and attaining perfection of the saints and all those things. So things outside of that are often external entities. These are things like Deseret Book. Deseret Book is a positive thing for members because it provides access to literature, to like merchandise material that helps members like live the gospel. But it's not like a necessary church thing. So Deseret Book is a separate entity, but it is owned by the church in a distant way. And same thing with Deseret News. It provides positive media about the church, and it is under the control of the church, but it is not a church. It is not part of the church. It's a church entity. So there's a bunch of those that exist. So I assumed like, oh, these nonprofits must be one of those, but they're not. So let me pull this up. So this is my little research that I've done as far as like the church structure of where like nonprofits actually fall in how they operate. Oh, sorry, I got something in my eye. So church-run charities. Latter-day Saint Charities, it used to be called LDS Charities, is the main one. And this is where the church runs all of their humanitarian efforts, from what I understand. Oh gosh, sorry, I've got like something in my eye and I'm like bugging out. Okay. This is mostly where they do their humanitarian work. There's the Perpetual Education Fund. That's not like an entity. It's like a division of one of the departments in the church, I think. You've got the welfare program. This falls under the presiding bishop. And this is where you also get things like the Bishop's Storehouse and Deseret Industries. And you also have church-sponsored nonprofits like the church schools, Brigham Young University, BYU Idaho, BYU Hawaii, Ensign College. Now, these are slightly different. They're 501c3s, but they don't fall under the same tax rules as a 501c3 charity nonprofit. So they don't file like annual 990s that are publicly available. But then you've got things that are not charities, and I've already mentioned some of these. Most of these fall under Deseret Management Corporation companies. So if I go to their webpage, this is Deseret Management Corporation. This is basically the umbrella corporation that holds a lot of the church entities that aren't like part of the church itself, like Bonneville International. This is things like KSL. Deseret News, which houses Deseret News, Deseret Magazine, and the Church News, which is different from Church Newsroom. You've got Bonneville Communications. This is like the media partner of the church. They help with like putting on general conference. Boncom is their marketing agency for doing publicity events like Light the World and the Giving Machines. Deseret Book, again, and Deseret Digital Media, Connecting Communications, Beneficial Life. This is their life insurance company. And Temple Square Hospitality. So you get the picture. Deseret Management Corporation companies houses all of these, from what I can tell. I'm not an expert on the church. I'm not an insider. This is all just from me Googling. So take that for what you will. I'm not exactly sure where Ensign Peak Advisors falls into this. This is their like financial advisory arm. So through all of that, where would Global Relief and Lifting Hands fit in? It wouldn't. So there is like one nonprofit organization I was able to find within the Deseret Management Corporation family, and that's the Radiant Foundation. I do know that they're a nonprofit under Bonneville Communications. They're all about like interactions with the faith and the media and promoting positive media overall. And they're actually a DBA, or a doing business as Bonneville Charitable Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit connected to KSL. This whole thing it's just a forest. But that was the only one I could find. All the rest of these are for-profit entities or corporations. They're not technically nonprofits. So really like the only place nonprofits fit would be under like Latter-day Saint Charities or BYU. And again, this is just all my inexperienced, unexpert knowledge here. If anyone in the comments like actually has experience working within the church or within a church university and has more insight, let me know. But I don't think the church has just like a bunch of nonprofits that they own. And if they are going to do humanitarian work, they usually do it through Latter-day Saint Charities. That's just how it works. And they do a ton through Latter-day Saint Charities. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but I was just going through their 2024 care report, and my goodness, they're doing 3,000 humanitarian projects in 192 countries with $1.4 billion in expenditures. So that's what Globus Relief does in Lifting Hands, and no, they're not part of the church at all. So the first claim here, or the first kind of implied assumption that you've got like all these Mormon charities giving aid to Islamist terrorist organization is already at the outset false. Most of the money they're talking about are coming from Globus Relief and Lifting Hands. So it says here that Globus Relief gave at least $119 million of support to 10 Islamist recipients. And I should make sure that there's a distinguishing feature here. So Islam is the religion. Muslim is an adherent of Islam. Islamic is an adjective for the religion of Islam. Islamist, from what I understand, is describing a specific political ideology of building a kingdom of Islam. So that's what we mean when we say Islamist versus Islamic. Okay. So their claim is that Globus Relief, $119 million of that $140 million total. So that is like the biggest slice of the pie. They also talk about how it's Islamic Relief is the main Islamist terrorist tied organization that they've given money to, or that they've given grants and contributions towards. And so they're saying, hey, this is really bad because Islamic Relief, it's got connections with the Muslim Brotherhood, and there's a lot of anti-Semitism with some of the members of that organization. So why is this Mormon charity giving so much money to them? Again, they're not part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So this independent third-party nonprofit is welcome to do whatever they would like as far as like their own money, and it should not reflect on the church as a whole or as an institution. But the other thing to note is that Lifting Hands is, let's go down here. Okay, they gave to like Islamic Relief, they've given to Human Appeal, they've given to quite a few others. I'm trying to find where okay, Lifting Hands gave $19.5 million to Helping Hands for Relief and Development, which is the U.S. charitable arm of the violent South Asian Islamist movement, Jamaat-e-Islami. I don't know like the factual nature of that like phrase right there, but I do know what actually has been given by Lifting Hands and what's been given by Globus Relief. So I'm going to pull up the 990s themselves. I know we're going to get a little bit technical, but it'll be brief. Trust me. We're not going to go too deep because like this is a lot to read. This is the 2019 990 form from Globus Relief. This shows what their main grants were towards other organizations. And you can just see on the left-hand side, you've got like Ability Foundations, Best Friends Animal Sanctuary, Charity Anywhere, like those sound great. And then in this column, you'll see the contributions they gave. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Now, there is kind of an outlier here. So as far as like when you look at the numbers, the biggest ones, you've got Free Wheelchair Mission. Okay, that sounds great. But then $21 million given to Islamic Relief. That is a lot. That was clearly like the biggest contribution they gave that year. The other one, $2.4 million to Zakat Foundation. That is a lot of money, for sure. This is the most that they ever gave in a given year for a very good reason. We'll see in a minute. But the other thing to note that's important, look at this. It says amount of non-cash assistance. This is not like cash handouts they're giving people. These are medical supplies. It even says drugs, medical, these are all part of like the actual supplies or humanitarian. They have all these categories and they're not giving any cash handouts. Globus Relief, I went through all of their 990s that I could find. I didn't really see hardly any cash give outs to any charity and none towards any of these that might be connected to Islamist terrorist organizations, whatever you want to call it. And so it's just a baseless claim to say like, oh, the church is giving $140 million. No. First of all, it's not the church, it's an independent nonprofit. And second of all, it is medical supplies. It is not necessarily cash handouts. Now, if we go to the 990s for Lifting Hands, this is I'm not exactly sure which year this is now that I'm thinking about it. And I have to scroll. I don't know. I think this is like 2021 maybe that I pulled up here. You do see that they did have some amount of cash grants. So this means that these were cash donations they gave to various charities like Center for Mind Body Medicine, For Peace, Helping Hand for Relief and Development. And this one of the articles points to is possibly has like a connection to some of these Islamist groups. But again, medical supplies, it's mostly non-cash contribution. So that's a huge thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is, let's see, where's the Department of Justice? The Department of Justice made a statement that really affected the trajectory of, I've got like so many non-90 forms. Okay, here we go. U.S. Department of State, not Justice. That's going to come up later. The U.S. Department of State says that in 2020, it made an official release basically warning people about Islamic Relief Worldwide. Now, this was the main nonprofit that Globus Relief was giving to. They were their biggest recipient of like that one year in 2019, $21 million worth of medical supplies. They gave a warning saying that the senior leadership of Islamic Relief Worldwide has a record of anti-Semitism, and it kind of details that of, you know, what they have on record about them. So like to be warned. Now, okay, what happens after the Department of State issues that warning? Okay, 2011, let's see, 2020. Their support dropped significantly. Now, these are donations across the board, not just to potentially Muslim-connected charities, but the donations have a steep decline. And you don't see Islamic Relief specifically on any of their 990s after this. So I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes with all their decision making, but clearly once the Department of State said, hey, there's maybe some concerning and problematic rhetoric going on in this particular charity, like they pivoted. The article made it seem like this is a Mormon-run organization that is secretly trying to fuel Hamas right now in the midst of like the October 7th attack and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict since then. Like, no. This was support they gave years and years ago before October 7th ever happened. This is support that the United States Department of State said, hey, there's maybe some concerning stuff there. And then you never see it on their 990s ever again. This organization like adapted and pivoted. There's something else really, really interesting that happens in 2019, but I'm going to get to that later when it comes to this particular nonprofit. The other thing that is important to keep in mind. So we talked about timeline. We talked about how these organizations are not actually run by the church. The other thing that's really important is that to just understand how difficult it is to do humanitarian work in the Middle East, like it's just kind of the fraught nature of this political environment that it's going to be really hard to give genuine humanitarian relief to any organization that isn't connected to some kind of controversial ideology. It's just a very inflammatory, controversial part of the world right now where there's a lot of conflicts, a lot of division. And so if the church wants to help people in need there, these are the difficult waters that they're navigating. And so I think we just should have a little bit more grace when it comes to people wanting to at least have good intentions, to do good, send aid, when there's just a lot going on there. Like, is it better to withhold aid because you know there's maybe a nefarious connection, or is it better to, give aid knowing that? It's a tough question. But speaking of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, okay, so we've talked about Globus Relief and Lifting Hands. Those are the two biggest nonprofits that are being implicated in this article. But when we go to what the article says about the church itself, okay, I think it starts right here. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints itself also finances Islamist groups through its international humanitarian endeavors. Okay, so it looks like we do have the church actually implicated in some way. LDS Charities, which has now been named Latter-day Saint Charities ever since President Nelson made the name change, a component of the church's welfare department, operates under its parent organization's 501c3 church status, and so is exempt from filing a nonprofit 990 tax return. This is true. I could not find anything, but that's just the nature of it because LDS Charities is like an entity of the church. They're tax exempt. They're kind of a different category legally, so they don't have to file a public 990 every year. So we can't see LDS Charities like the itemized list of everyone they gave to, though the church provides like an end of year report every year. So the 990 returns from Med Global, an Illinois-based charity, indicate that in 2017 and in 2019, the church or Latter-day Saint Charities donated to their organization. Now, I could not find any confirmation from 2017, but I did see in 2019 that Latter-day Saint Charities did donate to them. And it didn't say if this was in kind or cash, but I do suspect it probably was in cash, not in kind. Now, what's interesting about this is most of the time when you fill out your 990s and they're made publicly available, the names of donors are redacted in like on the IRS's official databases, yet Med Global just like published all of their 990s unredacted altogether. So that's why we're able to see that like Latter-day Saint Charities was one of their donors. And so, okay, we've got a donor. Latter-day Saint Charities donated to this cause, which they do to many, many, many causes. A couple years ago, or just last year, the church announced that the Relief Society was giving $54 million to infant and maternal health, and they were partnering with Care International and the Red Cross and a bunch of these other organizations. And that's often what the church does. They'll partner with other nonprofits that have specific expertise or specialty in humanitarian work, and then they'll be able to be a lot more efficient. So it sounds like the church did donate to Med Global as a way to do some good in the Middle East. And if we go to Med Global's site, do I have it pulled up here? Maybe not. Med Global. We'll just Google it. Usually when I do live streams, I'll like prepare a PowerPoint ahead of time so I'm like have everything in order and prepared. But we're just like going off. We're just winging it here with my Chrome tabs and browsers. So Med Global, again, this is medical equipment that they're providing and medical services that they provide to people all over the world. But it does seem like they specialize in the Middle East area. So we were able to determine when I went to their, so here's their 990 from, I can't remember which year. This is either 2017 or 2019, but you see they did not redact it. Latter-day Saint Charities, and they gave $1.9 million. And that is consistent with what the article said. So there's that. Now, is this a terrorist front? Is this, does this have like connections to Hamas? Are we funding Islamist organizations or initiatives? Well, here's what they have to say about it. The problematic aspect of this is that it was founded by Zaher Sahlul. Med Global is an Illinois-based charity particularly active in Gaza and Syria, and he's the former president of the radical Hamas-aligned Mosque Foundation. His social media exhorts Jews to speak out or be considered complicit in violence against Palestinians. And so today, his charity works particularly closely with the new Islamist regime in Syria. Okay, so, and then it talks about another staff member who also, in this nonprofit, who also has like said some inflammatory remarks before. So what we have is we've got an organization that from all appearances is like providing aid to people in the Middle East. And you've got the founder who apparently has said some things on social media. And you've got someone else on staff who has said some things on social media. And he was the former president of the Mosque Foundation. Now, I haven't done as much research into the Mosque Foundation, so I can't really speak to like their alignment. But I'm just going to take that at face value right now. So what we're talking about is that the church is supposedly like a bad faith actor or is nefarious because they donated to an organization that happens to have people on their staff who made social media posts. Like that's what we're talking about right now. And again, I don't mean to trivialize this. This is like, these are very serious issues. And I have a deep love for Judaism. I have a deep love for Islam. I went to the Jerusalem Center. I loved learning and appreciating more about both cultures and learning both perspectives when it comes to the conflict and having a little bit more sympathy and compassion for both sides. Whereas before I would have had more preconceived notions. All of this is true. And so I'm not like trying to come down against or for any one side as much as just to say that like, these are so many degrees of separation that like, why is this even news? That the church is trying to do good. They were trying to donate medical supplies to an organization that by all accounts on their 990s looks like that's what they're accomplishing. It doesn't look like there's any nefarious like skimming and embezzling going on. And yet because they have people on their staff that themselves hold particular ideologies, therefore the church is being implicated in that. And I just don't think that's fair. I don't think that it is a good representation of what the church is trying to do and what they're even affecting. It's not even just like the intentions, but the effect. Like they are doing good in the world by trying to provide aid to people, no matter their ethnicity, their religion, their race. The Church of Jesus Christ is not about helping only members. They're not about helping even just Christians, but we believe it's our Christian duty to help everyone in the world who are poor and needy, who are suffering, so that we can help. Now, the one thing that I think is interesting. So, like I mentioned, there were two articles that covered this. There was Middle East Forum and also Israel 365 News. They even brought the Jerusalem Center into this as like a way to incriminate the church. They talked about how like the Mormon Church also operates the Jerusalem Center on Mount Scopus, whose humanitarian programs raise further questions. So yes, the Jerusalem Center has an ongoing humanitarian program. Every semester, the students will like do humanitarian projects. Usually these are putting together kits, like pretty vanilla humanitarian stuff. With projects mostly into Palestinian communities in East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza. And you know what? Like, I don't actually know the administrative side of the Jerusalem Center. I only know what I experienced as a student. But like the sense you get as a student is that like the Jerusalem Center is there to serve the community. And the Jerusalem Center is on Mount Scopus. The Jerusalem Center is in East Jerusalem, which is a Palestinian settlement. I don't know if that's the correct term, but basically like we're existing in their space. So we're trying to do our best to be good neighbors, to serve them, because that's where the property is. It's not because we are being like ideologically slanted. The Jerusalem Center does a really thorough job of trying to make sure that there is a Muslim teacher to teach about Islam, a Jewish teacher to teach about Judaism in Israel, and they both give their very honest and candid perspectives, and the students getting a huge appreciation for both sides a little bit better, for understanding, sympathizing, all of that. So to like incriminate the Jerusalem Center for being like implying that they're tied to Islamist ideology, I think is just mistaken. But anyway, they also talk about this connection to Med Global. So LDS Charities has donated to Med Global, which was founded by Zaher Sahlul, and he even boasts about knowing LDS President Dallin H. Oaks since 2012. So this November, when Dallin H. Oaks became the president, the founder of Med Global, this Muslim charity, posted that today in Salt Lake City, we met with Dallin H. Oaks, who I've gotten to know since 2012, and he's the 18th president. And he just talks about, you know, what a positive interaction that was, and how Dallin H. Oaks commented about the fact that children should be the center of our service as they represent the future of humanity. And that is the incriminating post. They want to connect these two terror organizations together. Like, this is a photo op. And what did Dallin H. Oaks say in support of their cause? That we should care for children. Like, that's just a universal thing that we all can agree on. This isn't something that's nefarious. This isn't something where there's like a hidden buzzword or dog whistle that the church is secretly in line with Hamas or any terrorist organization or any Islamist organization. Like, this is just like wanting to build bridges. The church does this with every religious group. They invite people from every religious faith community to meet with him, to come together for private summits, to just build bridges, because the church is huge on interfaith. They want to build bridges. So they do this all the time. And then Dallin H. Oaks, said something that they have in common, that we care about children. I'm sorry, getting worked up, but I just think it's so funny. Anyway, I want to go back to Globus Relief just briefly, because going back to their 990s, you see this chart of revenue. These are like their donations. So like in the earliest days, they $107 million they were able to bring in donations. That is really impressive. And they've had many impressive years since. But then starting in 2019 or the year after 2019, it starts to go down. And this is where the real scandal is, that I was shocked to discover, but I don't know, I just kind of had to chuckle at, but also feel bad about. So as I was doing research into these nonprofits, I'm like, okay, they said that in the Middle East article, they even said that these were run by like senior Latter-day Saint leaders. These nonprofits were run. I can't find the exact quote, but I thought it was just hilarious that they said that they were run by senior Latter-day Saint leaders. And so I'm thinking like, oh, okay. So that means that these are being run by like emeritus general authorities or apostles. And if they're church entities, then they're really, no. These are just senior citizens that happen to be Latter-day Saints. Like this isn't, anything to be concerned about. So as I was doing research into all of the board of directors, the executive directors, I noticed on their 990 that in 2019, the CEO was named Ashley Robinson, but then after that, they had a new CEO. So I just was Googling that person. And this is the first result that came up. Former CEO of Utah Charity sentenced to prison for tax evasion. So on this particular charity, Ashley Robinson, which is a he, by the way, was the CEO of Globus Relief. And it turns out that behind the scenes, he was skimming off. He had developed a scheme with one of the donors of this organization where he was able to skim off over the course of years $1.3 million of these medical supplies that were coming in for charitable causes. Clearly, that is terrible. But also clearly, this is not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is an independent nonprofit. And my heart goes out to them because, as you can see, their support went down as soon as that scandal broke. And it is so hard for nonprofits who are doing good work and are trying to achieve their mission to recover after anything that's disruptive like that. And so obviously they ousted that CEO. They got a new one in, and they're still doing good. They're still bringing in multiple $1 million every year and trying to still hit all of the other charities they were reaching, except they have not necessarily given back to those same Islamist or Muslim tide, or however you want to phrase that. They haven't really been giving to those charities since then, after the United States Department of State gave that warning. But they have been giving to, veterinarian clinics, Utah State University, wheelchair nonprofits. They've been doing good work. And so because of that, I have put in the description of this live stream, I've put links to donate to Globus Relief and to Lifting Hands, and links to the church's care report as well, because at the end of the day, these are charities that are trying to do good. Yes, sometimes there's really unfortunate scandal. But this is not one of those times where the Church of Jesus Christ is in the midst of scandal. This is one of those times where I think the media is just misrepresenting what's going on here. No, the church is not contributing to terror-aligned Islamist charities. No, the church has not given $140 million in cash to Hamas-linked Islamist NGOs. That's just not what's going on here. The church is all about how to do good in the world. The church is a force for good. Not everyone is going to agree with me on that, but I just fundamentally believe that the church is good and is a force for good and is trying to do well in the world, which is why the church is doing this. 3,000 humanitarian projects in 192 countries with $1.45 billion expended. Now, I know the church finances are in the news a lot, and everyone's always like, well, they should be giving more. They should be giving more. But in the context of all these other charitable organizations, $1.45 billion is a ton. And they are doing work. And it's not just the amount of work. It's not just the money. It is so easy to see a cause, to see a need, and want to just throw money at it. But at least in my limited experience in nonprofits, doing it well is really where the rubber hits the road. Being efficient, being wise stewards with those funds is the challenge. And I think there's no better organization than the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for doing that. They've got the track record of being efficient and being wise stewards, and they have put in the reps to get experience in doing this in a way that is going to maximize the funds that they have and bless lives as much as possible, instead of being frivolous or wasteful or getting caught up in corruption. All of those things can derail a mission so quickly, and yet the Church of Jesus Christ has the guardrails in place, the checks and balances in place to make sure that this is done well. And so if you're someone who wants to do good in the world and see the poor and needy ministered to, if you want to relieve suffering, I just can't think of a better organization to do that than the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The care report, in my opinion, is just mind-blowing in both the breadth and the depth. And when you go to the care report, you'll see that they give overview summaries of what they've done, but then they'll go into detail about pretty much every major initiative they're doing, whether it's maternal and infant health, whether it's hunger, whether it's water access. And then they'll also break it up by region and country. So they'll have Middle East section, North America section, Africa section, so you can see what they're doing in different parts of the world, because they're not just focused on the Middle East, and they're definitely not just focused on North America. They're really interested in reaching the whole world. So yes, this is a pretty inflammatory article, and it sounds pretty shocking at first, but when you just break it down, there really is not much water to this argument. No, the church is not trying to fund terrorist organizations, nor are they trying to alienate Muslim populations. The Church of Jesus Christ has very fond feelings towards our Muslim brothers and sisters, and so should we. And same thing for our Jewish brothers and sisters. Likewise, like, it is our mandate as Christians to love all of God's children, to relieve suffering, to care for the poor and needy. That is what we are here for. So remember, guys, the church is true. And don't believe everything you hear in the media. Make sure you check your assumptions, check your sources, and take care.